She sat alone at the wedding until a single dad millionaire whispered, "Be my date." Hello everyone, before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let's get into today's story. She sat alone at the wedding until a single dad millionaire whispered, "Be my date." Emma had no idea that her life was about to change forever. Let's rewind for a moment and meet our main character. Emma Brooks was doing her best to keep it together as she sat at a table for two, her eyes scanning the crowd at a fancy wedding reception in New York City. The room was filled with laughter and chatter, everyone dressed in sleek black suits and elegant gowns, sipping champagne as if it was just another day in paradise. But Emma wasn't in the mood for celebrating. She wasn't like the others here. She felt out of place, like she had wandered into someone else's dream. Her dress was secondhand, her shoes were scuffed, and she clutched her glass of water with both hands as if it was her lifeline. She had promised her best friend, Jenny, that she'd come, but she never expected to feel so lonely among the crowd. This was a mistake, she thought to herself, as she fiddled with her napkin, trying to appear calm. A slight breeze from the air conditioning brushed against her face, but the chill in the room was nothing compared to the cold she felt inside. As the evening went on, she kept glancing at her phone, hoping for some distraction from the awkwardness. Just when she was about to retreat into her own thoughts, a voice cut through the noise. "You must be Emma." Emma looked up in surprise, only to find a man standing at the edge of her table, his dark hair neatly styled, his tailored suit almost too perfect for this setting. He had a confident, yet somewhat relaxed demeanor that immediately made her feel self-conscious. "Ah, yes, that's me," she said, her heart pounding as she tried to remember the name she was supposed to be looking for. "I'm Liam," the man said with a friendly smile, and Emma realized, to her embarrassment, that she had sat at the wrong table. The man she was supposed to meet, Kevin, was nowhere in sight. But instead of correcting her right away, Liam simply took a seat across from her, a faint smile playing at the corner of his lips. "I think we've got a little mix-up," Emma said, flushing with embarrassment, but trying to hide it behind a nervous laugh. "I'm not Kevin." "It's okay," Liam replied smoothly, still smiling. "This happens more often than you'd think." Emma was about to stand up and excuse herself when Liam raised his hand. "Wait," he said, glancing at the phone in his hand. "My meeting got cancelled, so I'm here for the evening, too. Let's just enjoy the night together. Blind dates are always a bit awkward, right?" Emma hesitated for a moment, then shrugged. She couldn't leave, and she was too curious to just walk away. "Sure," she said, her voice still shaky. "I guess we could try to make the best of it." To her surprise, Liam's easygoing nature helped ease the tension, and before long, she found herself talking to him about her life, her job as a waitress, her dream of one day opening an art studio, and the challenges of making ends meet. He listened intently, nodding along, asking questions that made her feel like he was genuinely interested. As the conversation flowed, Emma's nerves began to settle, and she even caught herself laughing. It was a nice change, and for a brief moment, she forgot she was at a wedding where she didn't belong. Just as she was starting to feel comfortable, Emma's phone buzzed in her purse. She glanced at the message and felt a cold wave of panic hit her. It was from Jenny, reminding her that Kevin was waiting at table 7. She froze. "Wait a minute," she whispered, looking at Liam in horror. "You're not Kevin, are you?" Liam's smile faltered, and for the briefest second, she saw the same realization flash across his face. "No, I'm not." He chuckled, a little sheepishly. "Looks like we both got caught up in a misunderstanding." Emma's cheeks turned bright red, and she quickly grabbed her coat, preparing to leave in a flurry of embarrassment. "I'm so sorry," she mumbled, already backing away from the table. Liam stood up too, his voice stopping her in her tracks. "Hey, it's okay," he said, his tone gentle. It's just a mix-up. No harm done. But as Emma turned to leave, she couldn't shake the strange feeling in her chest. There was something about Liam's presence that made her hesitate. Maybe it was his kindness, or maybe it was the way he made her feel like she wasn't just another face in the crowd. She didn't know it yet, but this mistake was going to lead to something she never saw coming. After the wedding mix-up, Emma rushed out of the venue, her heart racing. She had never felt so embarrassed in her life. The whole night had been a whirlwind of awkwardness, but what made it worse was the unexpected connection she felt with Liam. She had barely known him, yet something about him had made her feel at ease in a way she hadn't felt in years. As she walked down the street, her mind replayed their conversation. "I'm not Kevin, but I'd still like to get to know you," his words echoed in her head. "This is ridiculous," she muttered to herself, brushing away the thought. "I shouldn't even be thinking about him." But there was something about Liam that lingered, something different than the usual superficial conversation she was used to. She paused at the corner, glancing at her phone. Another text from Jenny, "Where did you go?" "Kevin's waiting at table 7. Emma sighed, feeling a little guilty for abandoning her friend. She quickly typed a response, apologizing for the mix-up and explaining that she had to leave early. As she put her phone back in her bag, she couldn't help but think about Liam. What if I had stayed, she wondered, but quickly shook the thought away. It was a mistake. He was a millionaire. He probably didn't care about someone like her. Just as she was about to cross the street, she felt a tap on her shoulder. Startled, she turned around. To her surprise, it was Liam. He was standing there, a warm smile on his face, his suit looking even more impeccable in the dim streetlight. "Emma, wait," he said, catching his breath. "I know this is crazy, but I feel like we had a real conversation back there. I don't want it to end like this." Emma blinked, stunned. "What do you mean?" she asked, unsure of how to respond. "I don't know how to explain it," Liam said, his voice steady yet earnest. "But I'd like to see you again. Maybe not at a wedding, but somewhere else. Somewhere more real." Emma's heart skipped a beat. This was insane. "But she started to say, but Liam cut her off. "I'm just a guy who had a nice conversation with a woman who wasn't just interested in my money or my status. I appreciate that more than you know." She didn't know what to say. On one hand, it felt like an offer she couldn't refuse. But on the other hand, she couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to this than he was letting on. Still, there was something in his eyes, a sincerity that made her pause. After a few moments of silence, she finally spoke. "Okay," she said, the word slipping out before she could fully think it through. "Okay, let's meet again." Liam's smile widened, and Emma felt a sudden warmth spread through her chest. "How about coffee tomorrow?" he asked, pulling out his phone. "I know a place. It's casual. Just us, no pressure." Emma hesitated for a moment, then nodded. "Sure. Tomorrow sounds good." As they exchanged numbers and said their goodbyes, Emma felt a flutter in her stomach. She had no idea what this would lead to, but something about Liam had piqued her interest in a way she couldn't ignore. The next day, Emma stood outside the small coffee shop, her hands nervously fidgeting with her bag. She had told herself not to expect anything, but the truth was, she was already curious about Liam. He had made it clear that he wasn't interested in her for her looks or her job. He seemed genuinely interested in her as a person, and for the first time in a long while, she felt seen. As she stepped inside the coffee shop, she spotted Liam right away. He was sitting at a corner table, a cup of coffee in front of him, looking relaxed and completely at ease. When he saw her, his face lit up, and he stood to greet her. "Hey, Emma. I'm glad you came," he said, offering her a seat. Emma smiled nervously as she sat down. "Thanks for inviting me." "Of course," Liam replied, his tone warm. "So, tell me more about your art. You said you wanted to open a studio, right?" Emma's eyes brightened at the mention of her passion. "Yeah, it's always been my dream," she said, her voice gaining confidence. "I've been sketching since I was a kid, but life got in the way. Now, I'm just trying to figure out how to make it happen." "I think that's amazing," Liam said, his gaze intense. "You know, I admire people who chase their dreams. It's not easy." Emma looked at him, surprised by his words. She had expected a simple, casual conversation, but there was something about the way he spoke that made her feel like he really understood. They spent the next hour talking about everything, from Emma's love for art to Liam's work in the tech world. He didn't once mention anything about his wealth or status. It was refreshing. By the time they finished their coffee, Emma felt a strange mix of emotions. She was starting to like him, but she couldn't help but wonder, was he really this genuine? Or was there something else going on? But as they stood up to leave, Liam looked at her with a soft smile and said, "I really enjoyed this. We should do it again sometime." Emma smiled back, feeling a little lighter than she had in days. "I'd like that." And for the first time in a while, Emma felt like maybe, just maybe, there was something more to this chance encounter than she had first thought. The next few weeks were a whirlwind for Emma. After that first coffee date with Liam, things started to feel different. They kept in touch, texting throughout the day, and slowly, she found herself looking forward to every conversation. She was still cautious, unsure if this was just a fleeting connection, but something about him made her feel seen. It wasn't about his money or his status, it was about how he listened to her, how he cared about the little things she said. She didn't know how to explain it, but every time they met, it felt easier to open up, and that made her want to spend more time with him. One Saturday afternoon, Liam invited Emma to a small art gallery opening. "I know it's not a big event," he texted, "but I thought you might enjoy it. Plus, it'll give us a chance to get out of the coffee shop for once." Emma hesitated for a moment. She wasn't sure if she was ready for something more formal, but the thought of spending time with him again made her heart flutter. She decided to go. When she arrived at the gallery, Liam was already there, standing by a painting in the back corner. He looked up when she entered, his eyes lighting up as he smiled. "I'm glad you could make it," he said, walking over to greet her. They spent the next hour wandering through the exhibit, talking about the different pieces of art, sharing opinions, and laughing at some of the more abstract works. For a moment, Emma felt like she belonged. It wasn't the fancy venue or the crowd of people around them, it was the simplicity of being with someone who genuinely cared about what she had to say. At one point, Liam turned to her, his expression thoughtful. "You know, I've been thinking about what you said the other day," he said. "About wanting to open your own studio." Emma looked at him, unsure of where he was going with this. "Yeah? I think you should go for it," Liam said, his voice sincere. "You've got the talent, and you're passionate about it. Don't let anything hold you back." Emma felt a lump form in her throat. She had never expected someone like Liam to take her dreams seriously. Sure, people had always told her she was good at art, but no one had ever really pushed her to take it further. "Thank you," she whispered, a little choked up. "That means more to me than you know." Liam smiled gently. "I believe in you, Emma." Those words stayed with her long after the gallery closed and they said their goodbyes. Emma returned to her small apartment that night with a sense of purpose she hadn't felt in a long time. She had always wanted to open her own studio, but life had always gotten in the way. Now, for the first time, she felt like she had a reason to really try. The following weeks were a blur of new energy and determination. Emma started looking into local spaces for rent, researching everything she could about running a small business, and even started sketching ideas for her first exhibit. Every time she felt overwhelmed, she thought back to Liam's words, "I believe in you." He had no idea how much they had meant to her. As their relationship grew, so did Emma's confidence. Liam never once pressured her, never once made her feel like she had to do anything she wasn't ready for. He was patient, supportive, and always there to offer encouragement. But even as she became more involved in her work, Emma couldn't help but wonder, was this just a fleeting moment? Was Liam's support because he saw potential in her, or was he simply being kind? She was hesitant to trust the feelings she had for him, unsure of where this would go. Still, every time they met, the connection between them felt deeper, and with each passing day, Emma found herself caring more for him. It wasn't just about the art or the support, it was about the way he made her feel valued. Liam had opened up to her about his own struggles, too, his loss of his wife, the pressure of raising his daughter alone, and the weight of his responsibilities as a millionaire CEO. But despite everything, he still found time to be there for her, to show up for their dates, and to listen to her talk about her dreams. Emma couldn't help but admire him for that. One evening, as they were sitting at a quiet cafe, Liam took her hand across the table. "You're incredible, Emma," he said softly, his gaze intense. "I admire your strength, your drive. You've come so far already." Emma looked up at him, her heart pounding. "Thank you," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "You've helped me more than you know." For the first time, Emma realized that Liam wasn't just helping her chase her dreams, he was becoming a part of them. And as they sat there, the quiet hum of the cafe around them, Emma felt something shift inside her. She wasn't just working toward her art studio anymore, she was working toward something bigger, something more meaningful, a future she could share with someone who truly saw her for who she was. As Liam squeezed her hand, Emma couldn't help but smile, knowing that whatever happened, she had found something real. Maybe this was the start of something more than she had ever imagined. As Emma's confidence in her art began to grow, so did her connection with Liam. They spent more time together, and with each passing day, their bond deepened. The more they shared about their lives, the more Emma realized just how much she cared for him. He wasn't like anyone she had ever met. He was patient, kind, and he listened, not just to her words but to the feelings behind them. It was everything she had longed for, and yet, she couldn't fully shake the feeling that something was still missing. It wasn't that she didn't trust Liam, it was that she wasn't sure where they were headed. Their relationship felt like it was constantly on the edge of something more, but neither of them had crossed that line. One evening, after a particularly wonderful dinner at a small Italian restaurant, Liam walked Emma to her car. The night was cool, the city lights reflecting off the wet pavement, creating a soft glow around them. They had been laughing, talking about everything and nothing, when Liam suddenly stopped in his tracks. "Emma," he said, his voice serious, "I need to be honest with you about something." Emma looked at him, her heart skipping a beat. "What is it?" she asked, her voice a little shaky. He paused for a moment, his hands shoved into his pockets. "I've been keeping something from you," he admitted, looking into her eyes. "I haven't been completely upfront about who I am." Emma frowned, confusion flickering in her eyes. "What do you mean?" Liam sighed, as if weighing his words carefully. "I'm not just some guy working in tech," he said quietly. "I'm a CEO. I run a company. I've been careful about keeping that part of my life separate because I didn't want you to think I was interested in you for the wrong reasons." Emma's mind raced, but she stayed silent, trying to process his words. She had suspected, in some small way, that Liam was hiding something, but she never imagined this. "I didn't want you to think I was just another wealthy guy looking for a charity case," Liam continued, his tone apologetic. "I wanted you to see me for who I am, not my title or my bank account." Emma took a step back, her thoughts swirling. She had always known there was something different about Liam, but this revelation threw her off balance. She had spent weeks with him, believing he was just a regular guy, someone who understood her struggles. But now, this? A part of her felt betrayed, as though he had deceived her by not telling her the truth. "Liam," she began, her voice shaking, "why didn't you tell me?" Liam's eyes softened. "I didn't want to scare you away," he said, taking a step closer. "I've been through a lot in my life, and I know what it's like to be judged by my wealth. I didn't want you to feel like you had to act a certain way or be someone you're not just because of me." Emma stood there, silently processing his words. She wasn't sure how to feel. On one hand, she appreciated his honesty, but on the other, she couldn't help but feel a little hurt by the secrecy. "I don't know what to say," she finally whispered, looking down at the ground. "I thought we were building something real, and now I don't know. Liam's heart sank as he watched her reaction. He had never wanted to make her feel this way. I never meant for it to go this far without telling you, he said quietly. But I can't deny how I feel about you, Emma. I care about you more than I've cared about anyone in a long time, and I didn't want my wealth to get in the way of that. Emma took a deep breath, trying to calm the whirlwind of emotions inside her. She had to admit, she cared about him too. But was it enough? Was she ready to accept him, all of him, with the secrets he had kept hidden? Slowly, she met his gaze. I need some time, she said softly. I need to figure this out. Liam nodded, his heart heavy with the weight of her words. Take all the time you need, he replied gently. I'll be here when you're ready. Emma smiled faintly, her heart aching. She didn't want to walk away from Liam, but she needed space to process everything he had told her. She turned to walk away, her steps slow and deliberate, as the cold night air seemed to weigh on her shoulders. Liam watched her leave, his heart in his chest, knowing that he had done the right thing by being honest with her, but unsure of what the future held for them. The days that followed were filled with confusion and self-reflection for Emma. She spent hours alone, thinking about what Liam had said. She couldn't ignore the way he made her feel, how he supported her dreams and made her feel like she mattered. But at the same time, the idea of being with someone who lived in such a different world was terrifying. Could she handle the pressure? Could she accept the complexities of his life? It wasn't just about money, it was about the world he inhabited, the expectations that came with it. Could she ever fit into that world, or was she better off staying in the life she knew? One evening, as Emma sat in her apartment, sketching in her notebook, her phone buzzed. It was a text from Liam. I understand if you need space, but I'd love to talk when you're ready. I miss you. Emma stared at the message, her heart pounding in her chest. She knew she couldn't ignore it any longer. She had to face her feelings. And maybe, just maybe, it was time to find out what the future held for them both. It had been a few days since Emma had received Liam's message, and every moment since then had felt like an eternity. She had spent countless hours thinking about their conversation, weighing her feelings, and trying to decide what to do next. Part of her wanted to walk away. She had spent most of her life being independent, building her own path, and she wasn't sure if she could navigate the complexities of Liam's world, a world so different from her own. But another part of her, the part that had connected with him from the start, kept pushing her to at least give it a chance. She had always told herself she wasn't afraid of taking risks, and maybe this was one worth taking. One afternoon, Emma sat in her favorite coffee shop, the same one she and Liam had gone to on their first real date. She stirred her drink absently, her eyes lost in the swirling pattern of the milk as it blended into the espresso. The door opened, and she heard the familiar sound of footsteps approaching. She didn't need to look up to know it was Liam. The air in the coffee shop seemed to shift when he entered, the warmth of his presence filling the room. She smiled as he walked over, and without a word, he slid into the chair across from her. Hey, he said softly, his eyes searching hers. How are you? Emma paused, her heart pounding in her chest. She had rehearsed this moment 1,000 times, but now that it was happening, the words didn't come as easily as she thought they would. I've been thinking about everything you said, she began, her voice quieter than she intended. And I think I've been scared. Liam's face softened, and he leaned in slightly, his attention solely on her. Scared of what? He asked gently. Emma took a deep breath, looking out the window for a moment before meeting his gaze. Scared of letting someone in, she admitted. Scared of what it would mean, of how it might change everything. There was a long silence between them, the kind that felt heavy with unspoken thoughts. Finally, Liam spoke, his voice low but steady. Emma, I'm not asking you to change who you are. I never have. All I want is to be with you, to support you, and to see you chase those dreams you've talked about. Emma felt her chest tighten as his words settled into her heart. But what about your life? She asked, the question slipping out before she could stop it. What about everything you've built? The pressure, the expectations? Liam smiled, a small, reassuring smile that made her heart flutter. I'm not asking you to be part of that world unless you want to, he said. And I'm not asking you to pretend like it's easy. But if you're willing to try, if you're willing to take a chance, I'll be right here, no matter what. Emma felt the weight on her shoulders lift, even if just for a moment. She hadn't realized how much she needed to hear those words, how much she had been holding on to fear. I don't know what the future holds, she said softly, her voice barely above a whisper. But I think I'm ready to see where this goes. Liam's eyes brightened, his smile widening. You don't have to have all the answers right now, he said. We'll figure it out together. The relief that flooded through Emma was almost overwhelming. For the first time in days, she felt like she could breathe again. There was something about Liam, something that made her believe in the possibility of love, of a future that didn't have to be perfect but could be real. Thank you, she whispered, reaching across the table to take his hand. Liam's grip was warm, steady, and as she held his hand, she felt a sense of peace wash over her. For all the doubts and fears she had been carrying, she knew, deep down, that this was the right decision. I'm glad you're here, she added softly, her voice full of sincerity. I'm glad you didn't give up on me. Liam squeezed her hand, his voice filled with emotion. I never would. The rest of the afternoon passed in a blur of conversation and laughter, the two of them talking about everything and nothing, just enjoying each other's company. When it was time to leave, Liam walked her to her car, the evening sky painted with hues of pink and orange as the sun set behind them. He leaned in for a soft kiss on her cheek before she got into the car. I'll see you tomorrow, he said, his voice warm and full of promise. I'm looking forward to it, Emma replied, her heart full. As she drove home, Emma couldn't help but smile to herself. She didn't know what the future held, but for the first time in a long time, she felt like she was exactly where she was supposed to be. With Liam, everything felt different. And for the first time in a long time, she felt like it was okay to take a leap of faith, to embrace the uncertainty and let herself fall. Because sometimes, love wasn't about knowing all the answers, it was about taking a chance on what could be. And in that moment, Emma knew that with Liam, she was ready to take that chance. As days turned into weeks, Emma and Liam's connection deepened, and with each passing moment, Emma felt herself growing more certain about the path she was walking. She had always been independent, fiercely so, but there was something about Liam that made her feel like she could let her guard down, like she didn't have to do everything on her own anymore. Liam's support had become a constant in her life, and as her art studio began to take shape, she realized how much she had grown, not just as an artist but as a person. One afternoon, while Emma was in the middle of finalizing the plans for her studio, she received a call from Liam. Hey, he said, his voice sounding a little more serious than usual, I think we need to talk. A small pang of worry shot through her chest, but she quickly shook it off. Of course, what's going on? It's about something important, he continued. Can we meet tonight? I'll explain everything then. Emma felt a bit of unease creep in, but she agreed to meet him later that evening. They decided to meet at a quiet park near the edge of the city, a place they had visited a few times during their early days together. When Emma arrived, she saw Liam sitting on a bench, his hands folded in his lap, his expression thoughtful. He stood up when he saw her and smiled, but there was something different about his smile, something that didn't quite reach his eyes. Hey, he said, walking over to her. Thanks for coming. Of course, Emma replied, trying to gauge his mood. What's going on, Liam? You're making me nervous. Liam sighed and looked away for a moment, gathering his thoughts. I've been thinking a lot about everything, he began, his voice low. About us, about my life, about yours, and I realized something. Emma's heart began to race. What did you realize? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. He turned to face her fully, his gaze steady. I've been holding back, he said, his words hanging in the air between them. Not because I didn't want to be with you, but because I'm scared of what it means. I'm scared of dragging you into a world you don't want, a world that's far removed from everything you've worked for. Emma's chest tightened as she listened to him, a mix of confusion and understanding flooding her mind. "Liam, I don't know what you mean," she said, trying to make sense of what he was saying. "What do you mean you're dragging me into a world? I'm not scared of you, or your world. I just want to be with you, that's all." Liam reached out and gently took her hands in his expression softening. "You deserve more than the chaos I live in," he said, his voice tinged with vulnerability. "You deserve someone who doesn't have to balance a million responsibilities, who doesn't have to worry about the weight of a company on his shoulders every day. You deserve someone who can focus on you, who isn't constantly looking over his shoulder." Emma's mind swirled with his words, but deep down, she knew that Liam was speaking from a place of love and fear, not from doubt. She squeezed his hands gently, drawing his attention back to her. "Liam, I get it," she said softly, her heart aching with the depth of his emotions. "But you're not asking me to be a part of your business. You're asking me to be a part of your life, and that's what matters. I'm not afraid of your world because it's your world. I'm not afraid of the chaos or the responsibilities. I just want to be by your side, no matter what that looks like." For a long moment, Liam said nothing, his eyes searching hers as if trying to find the truth in her words. Finally, he spoke, his voice thick with emotion. "You're really sure about this?" he asked. "You're willing to be with me, even with everything that comes with it?" Emma nodded, her gaze unwavering. "I'm sure," she said, her voice full of certainty. "I don't need a perfect life, Liam. I just need a real one. And I know that if we're in this together, we can make it work." A quiet breath escaped Liam, as though he had been holding it in for far too long. He pulled her into a hug, wrapping his arms around her tightly. "I'm so glad you feel that way," he whispered. "Because I can't imagine my life without you in it." They stood there for a while, holding each other, the weight of the world lifting off their shoulders. In that moment, Emma realized that she had made the right decision. She wasn't just chasing a dream anymore, she was building a life with someone she cared about deeply. No matter the challenges, no matter the chaos that might come their way, they would face it together. As they finally pulled apart, Liam smiled at her, his eyes shining with affection. "So, what now?" he asked. Emma grinned, a sense of peace settling over her. "Now," she said, "we figure it out together." And for the first time in a long time, Emma felt truly at peace. She wasn't just following her dreams anymore, she was living them. And with Liam by her side, she knew that no matter where life took them, they would face it together, hand in hand. As weeks passed, Emma and Liam's relationship grew stronger, each day solidifying the foundation they were building together. Liam had taken a step back from his corporate responsibilities, making more time for Emma, for the life they were starting to create. His support for her dreams never wavered, and as Emma's art studio started to come to life, so did her confidence. The once distant fear of whether their worlds could truly align seemed to fade with every passing moment. But even with everything feeling so right, Emma still found herself wrestling with one question: was she truly ready to share every part of her life with Liam? One evening, while they sat together in the cozy corner of their favorite cafe, Liam could sense the shift in Emma's energy. There was something on her mind, something she wasn't saying. He put his cup down, his eyes meeting hers. "Emma, you've been a little distant lately. What's going on?" Emma hesitated, unsure of how to put her feelings into words. She didn't want to seem ungrateful, didn't want to make him think that she wasn't happy with the way things were going. But deep down, she knew she had to be honest. "It's not you, Liam," she began softly. "It's just that I'm still learning how to let go. I've always been so independent, and now, with everything that's changing, I sometimes feel like I'm not sure where I fit into this new life." Liam's expression softened as he reached across the table to take her hand in his. "I understand," he said quietly. "I get that. But Emma, this isn't about fitting into something else, it's about us creating something new, something that's ours. I'm not asking you to change who you are. I'm asking you to be with me, to share your life with me, and to let me be a part of yours." Emma looked down at their joined hands, feeling the warmth of his touch. It was the simplest gesture, but it spoke volumes. "I'm trying," she whispered. "I really am. But I still have so many doubts." "And that's okay," Liam said, squeezing her hand. "We don't have to have it all figured out right away. I don't expect perfection. I just want to be with you, however that looks. And I'm here, no matter what you need." Emma smiled, a mixture of relief and appreciation washing over her. She had been carrying so much on her shoulders, trying to keep everything together, but hearing Liam's words made her realize that she didn't have to do it all alone. The next day, Emma spent the afternoon at her studio, putting the finishing touches on some of her new work. She had always dreamed of having a place where she could not only create but also inspire others, and now, it was becoming a reality. As she stepped back to admire the paintings on the wall, she felt a sense of fulfillment she hadn't felt in years. She was proud of what she had accomplished, but even more so, she was proud of the person she was becoming. Later that evening, Liam picked her up from the studio. "How's the studio coming along?" he asked, his eyes lighting up as he saw the smile on her face. "It's coming together," Emma said, her voice filled with excitement. "It's starting to feel real, Liam. I can't believe it." As they drove home, the weight of her fears from the past few weeks seemed to lift with every mile they traveled. She was no longer afraid of the unknown, no longer afraid of the future. She knew that no matter what challenges lay ahead, she had someone by her side who would be there to face them with her. That evening, as they sat together on the couch, Liam took Emma's hand once again, looking at her with such intensity that it made her heart skip a beat. "Emma," he said softly, "I don't want to wait any longer to tell you this. I've been thinking about it for a while, and I can't imagine my life without you in it." Emma's breath caught in her throat. "What are you saying?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Liam smiled, his eyes filled with warmth. "I'm saying that I love you, Emma. I love you in a way that I never thought I could again. I want to spend the rest of my life with you, building this life we've started together." Emma's heart swelled with emotion as the words sank in. She had never imagined this moment would come so soon, but as she looked into Liam's eyes, she knew without a doubt that this was where she belonged. "I love you too," she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. "I'm so glad we found each other." Liam leaned in, his lips brushing against hers in a gentle kiss, sealing the promise of the future they would create together. In that moment, Emma knew that everything she had ever dreamed of was within reach. She had found love, she had found purpose, and she had found someone who would stand by her side through it all. And as they held each other, Emma finally allowed herself to fully embrace the love they shared, knowing that no matter what the future held, they would face it together, hand in hand. Months passed, and Emma and Liam's life together seemed to fall into a rhythm that felt right. Emma's studio had grown beyond her expectations, and with each passing day, more and more people came through her doors. She had created a space where her art could thrive, and for the first time, she was starting to see the potential of what she had built. The dream she had worked so hard for was becoming a reality, and she couldn't help but feel proud of everything she had accomplished. But even as her professional life flourished, the personal side of her world with Liam continued to evolve, in ways that felt equally significant. Every moment spent with him only deepened her feelings, and she began to realize just how much he had become a part of her life. They shared quiet evenings in, spontaneous trips out of the city, and long walks through the park where they would talk about everything and nothing. It was during one of these walks, a warm Sunday afternoon, that Liam stopped suddenly, taking both of her hands in his. "Emma," he said, his voice serious but gentle, "there's something I've been thinking about for a while now." Emma looked at him curiously, a little unsure of where this was going. "What is it?" she asked. Liam hesitated for a moment, his eyes searching hers. "I know we've talked about the future before," he began, "but I want to take that next step. I want to ask you to be a bigger part of my life. Not just in the small ways we've already built, but in the big ways. I want you to be my partner, not just in the studio or in life, but in everything." Emma felt her heart race as the words hit her. She hadn't expected this. They had never really talked about marriage, or the future beyond what they were already building. What do you mean? She asked, a slight tremble in her voice. Liam smiled softly, taking a deep breath. What I mean is, he continued, I want to marry you, Emma. I want to spend the rest of my life with you, building a future, creating memories, and supporting each other in everything we do. You mean everything to me, and I can't imagine my life without you in it. Emma's breath caught in her throat, and for a moment, time seemed to slow down. Her mind raced, trying to process his words, trying to understand the depth of what he was asking. Liam had always been supportive, always there for her, but this was something different. She had dreamed of a love like this, but she had never imagined it would feel so real, so tangible. She looked up at him, her eyes filled with emotion. Are you sure? She whispered, as though she couldn't quite believe it. Liam's expression softened, and he nodded. I've never been more sure of anything in my life, he said, his voice steady. I love you, Emma. More than I ever thought I could love anyone, and I want to make this last, forever. Emma felt tears welling up in her eyes as she looked at him, her heart overflowing with love and gratitude. She had always been afraid of the unknown, afraid of giving so much of herself to someone else, but with Liam, everything felt different. For the first time in a long time, she knew without a doubt that she was ready. Ready to take the next step, ready to build a future with him. I love you too, she said, her voice full of emotion. I want that too. I want to spend the rest of my life with you, Liam. A smile broke across Liam's face, and he pulled her into a tight embrace, holding her as if she were the most precious thing in the world. You just made me the happiest man alive, he whispered into her hair. Emma smiled against his chest, feeling a sense of peace and joy she hadn't known was possible. In that moment, everything felt perfect. They were no longer just two people navigating their separate lives, but two hearts intertwined, ready to face whatever the future held together. As they pulled away, Liam reached into his pocket and pulled out a small, velvet box. Emma gasped as he opened it, revealing a beautiful ring. Will you marry me? He asked, his voice full of hope and love. Emma's heart swelled as she looked at the ring, and then at Liam, the man who had become everything to her. Yes, she said, without hesitation. Yes, I will marry you. Liam's smile widened, and he slipped the ring onto her finger, kissing her gently. As they stood there in the park, the sun setting behind them, Emma realized that she had found the one thing she had always been searching for, a love that was real, a love that was built on trust, respect, and the desire to build something beautiful together. She had found her future, and it was with Liam. The months that followed were filled with excitement and anticipation as Emma and Liam began to plan their future together. Their engagement had brought them even closer, and with each passing day, they continued to build a life that was richer and more fulfilling than either of them had ever imagined. Emma's art studio continued to grow, attracting more clients and allowing her to showcase her talent in ways she had once only dreamed of. She found herself becoming more confident, not just in her art but in her relationship with Liam. They had their moments of doubt, moments when the pressures of their respective worlds seemed to weigh heavily on them, but they always came back to each other, their bond growing stronger with every challenge they faced. One evening, as they sat together in the living room of their apartment, Liam looked at Emma with a thoughtful expression. I've been thinking, he said, his voice calm but serious, about how we want to approach everything in the future. Emma raised an eyebrow, intrigued. What do you mean? I mean about how we balance our lives, our work, and our relationship, Liam continued. I know we're both busy, and I don't want us to lose sight of what really matters. Emma smiled. Gently, reaching for his hand. I agree, she said softly. But I think we've already done a great job of keeping things in balance. We've been able to support each other while still following our dreams, and I believe we can keep doing that. Liam squeezed her hand, his expression softening. You're right, he said. I just want to make sure that no matter what, we always make time for each other. You're the most important thing in my life, and I don't ever want to take that for granted. Emma's heart swelled at his words. I feel the same way, Liam, she said. You mean everything to me, and I'm so grateful for everything we have. The following weeks were a blur of wedding planning, art projects, and continued success at the studio. As Emma finalized the details for their wedding, she couldn't help but feel overwhelmed by how much love and support they had received from their friends and family. They had come a long way from the awkwardness of their first meeting, and now, standing on the cusp of their new life together, Emma realized just how much they had grown. On the day of their wedding, everything seemed to fall into place perfectly. The weather was beautiful, the venue was stunning, and as Emma walked down the aisle, she felt a sense of peace and joy wash over her. She couldn't believe this moment had finally arrived, and she couldn't believe it was with Liam. When they exchanged vows, Emma's heart soared. "I promise to always support you, to always be there for you, through all the highs and lows, and to build a life full of love and laughter with you," Liam said, his voice steady and full of emotion. Emma smiled through her tears, taking his hands in hers. "I promise to always believe in us, to cherish every moment we have together, and to love you with all of my heart," she replied. The ceremony was beautiful, but it was the moments afterward, when they danced together as husband and wife, that Emma would always cherish. She had never felt more certain, more loved, and more at home than she did in that moment. As the night went on, surrounded by friends and family, Emma realized that all of the hard work, the doubts, the fears, and the challenges they had faced had led them to this moment. It was all worth it. And with Liam by her side, she knew that whatever came next, they would face it together, hand in hand. The future stretched before them, full of possibilities, but Emma was no longer afraid. She had found the love of her life, and together, they would build a future based on trust, mutual respect, and a deep, unwavering love. As the night came to a close, Liam took her hand and led her outside, where they stood under the stars, the world around them quiet and still. "I love you, Emma," he whispered, pulling her close. Emma smiled up at him, her heart full. "I love you too," she said softly. "Forever." And in that moment, with the world at their feet, Emma knew that she had found everything she had ever wanted. It wasn't just a fairy tale, it was real. And together, they would write their own story, one full of love, laughter, and everything they had dreamed of.